I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome you all here. If you would all please stand as we pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Lisa, would you please read the appropriate opening statement?
This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with the Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Act, the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority sends annual meeting schedule for August 2017 to July 2018, setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting to the Secretary of State's office in Trenton, New Jersey, and the office of the clerk of Atlantic City. The notice was published in the Press of Atlantic City, the Camden Courier Post, and the New York Star Ledger on August 1, 2017, and August 2, 2017. Members of the press will be permitted to take photographs at today's meeting, providing that it is done in a manner which is not distracting to the authority, nor interferes with the public's right to observe the meeting. Any member of the public who wishes to address the authority regarding items to be presented to the board today will be given the opportunity to do so. Comments regarding any issues that do not appear on today's agenda will be taken during the public comment portion at the end of the meeting. We ask that members of the public who address the board stand and state their name and address for the record each time they speak on an issue. It is also requested that comments be limited to 3 minutes per issue. Deborah Di Lorenzo.
Present.
Ed Gant.
Here.
Mark Antonio.
Here.
Mayor Don Guardian.
Here.
Michael Hanley.
Here.
Gary Hill.
Here.
Howard Kyle.
Here.
Matt Levinson. William Mullen.
Here.
Kevin Ortzman.
Here.
Dave Rebuck for the State Attorney General.
Here.
Robert Kennedy for the DCA Commission.
Here.
Bob Shaughnessy for the State Treasurer.
Here.
Frank Spencer.
Here.
Richard Colson.
Here.
Chairman Robert McCahey.
Present. Thank you, Lisa. The first item on the agenda is ratification of the minutes of the October 17th board meeting. I assume you've all read them. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to ratify the minutes.
Motion.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. Next item, the treasurer's report. I'll accept the motion to have it placed on file.
Moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. Next item on the agenda is one we always look forward to, and that's Chris Howard's Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple things today. First, we had a few big events over the past few weeks here at the Convention Center in Boardwalk Hall. At the Convention Center, we had 15,000 attendees for the NJEA convention, another 22,000 for the New Jersey State League of Municipalities, so that's 37,000 attendees, over 10,000 hotel rooms in the span of just a couple weeks. Boardwalk Hall also had a big event. We had Janet Jackson's State of the World Tour. That was on Friday, November 10th, and there were nearly 9,000 people for that one. Only other note that I have for today is we just recently hired a digital communications coordinator. It's Annie Wentz. I'm not sure if she is in here right now. Annie started last Monday. She will be re-engaging our tourism, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts, which we recently reacquired. They were formerly under the control of the Atlantic City Alliance. And she'll also be activating our CRDA social media channels on Twitter and Facebook. So if you're not already following, should be a good follow moving forward. That's all I have.
Fortunately, you hired people that know that, not old guys like me. All right, we have several items on the agenda today. First, we have 2 land use items. The first one relates to 17 North Florida. It's block 279, lot 63, for a certificate of nonconformity. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority approving a certificate of nonconformity for 17 North Florida LLC under application 2017-09-2258.
Are there any members that have to recuse themselves on this? Chris, you want to give a description of the nonconformity?
Sure, so the applicant is seeking a certificate of nonconformity, or CNC, for an existing structure. It's an approximately 17,000 square foot warehouse. It's currently used as a warehouse, but it's in the R3 residential district. The CNC is to certify that the use as a warehouse, which is not permitted in the district, existed lawfully prior to a zoning change in 1979. It's been determined that the usage has existed, the warehouse use has existed since 1926 and has continued through current day. The applicants provided all the necessary documentation and testimony. We had a land use hearing on this on October 5th, and based on the evidence and testimony provided, we're recommending approval.
Board discussion. Public comment. Seeing no public comment, I'll accept the motion to approve the certificate of nonconformity.
Moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Next item is,
Chairman, I can recuse myself.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Oh, on this one. DGMB Casino LLC, North Carolina Avenue, Block 57, Lot 9. Preliminary and final site plan approval. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority granting preliminary and final site plan approval and variance relief for the construction of a reconfigured surface parking lot on the property located at 156 South North Carolina Avenue in the city of Atlantic City, Block 57, Lot 7 through 11, and Block 59, Lot 1, under application 2017-09-2257.
Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. DGMB Casino LLC, which is Resorts, has requested preliminary and final site plan approval for a reconfiguration of an existing parking lot. The existing and proposed parking area contains public, valet, and employee parking. And the goal here is to create a new configuration that'll be more efficient, provide better traffic circulation. Proposal includes an increase of 41 spaces. They're also proposing some internal driveways, landscaping, fencing, pole-mounted lighting, pavement striping, electronic gate systems, and signage as part of the reconfiguration. There is some variance relief for parking setback from a public street. Also an existing nonconformity for a minimum parking setback from the boardwalk, and a variance as well for maximum fence height. One other waivers requested is they're seeking waivers for aisle width of off-street parking spaces, ingress-egress provisions, and site triangle requirements. We had our land use hearing on this application on October 19th, and based on the evidence and testimony presented, we are recommending approval.
Board discussion. Public discussion. Seeing none, a motion to...
Motion to accept?
Motion to
Second.
approve the non-conformity. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Mark, you can come back in if you're around. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the 2018 SID division budget. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority adopting the operating budget for the CRDA Special Improvement District for the period January 1 through December 31, 2018.
Any recusals? Chris, you want a description of the action?
Sure. So the 2018 SID division budget was introduced at a public hearing on October 17th. The budget represents a 2% increase of $150,000 over our 17 budget and requires an additional $268,000 CRDA subsidy from this year. The subsidy increase is primarily attributable to a decrease in the SID assessments based on, or due to tax appeals, also contractual wage increases and a few other factors. Once again, same as last year and every other year since the CRDA has been handling this, there is no increase in the assessment rate. So the CRDA, the authority, is absorbing all of the increased costs that we're seeing for next year. And I believe that is it, Mr. Chairman.
Howard, as chairman of the committee, do you have anything you wish to add?
No, I think the budget was vetted very thoroughly in committee. There are two public hearings, as Chris just mentioned. It's $6.2 million budget, and staff assures us that the funding is adequate for what their needs will be in the coming year. So, it's acceptable.
Board discussion. Public discussion. Mr. Cheatham.
Let's ask the question concerning the city's budget. Now, I go to the city and ask questions. I come here and ask questions, but I still never get no answers that I like to hear. Now, is it more cooperation gonna be for next year coming up between the city of Atlantic City, Public Works Department, and city? I mean, gonna be more cooperation or less cooperation?
Our modus of operandi is to cooperate with everybody. We don't want to be taken advantage of.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, now, you're saying this,
Yep.
but then when I asked certain people in Sid's department, I asked the city government, same thing. Who's gonna fix the defects on our boardwalk? Who's gonna take care of those dunes that weeds growing all over the place, not being maintained? And don't tell me they can't be cut, because they can, okay? We can look a whole lot better than they doing on that boardwalk. Our boardwalk is not being repaired. I don't care who's supposed to repair it or how it's done. It needs to be done. Now, these are the things I see myself, and I don't get around as much as I would like to.
But you do a pretty good job.
See? And so, I would like to find out, can we cooperate with each other more in the coming year? I still say that over and over again with the city. Now, I don't want to keep going to Public Works and asking the same question. Well, we're trying. I don't want to hear them trying. It needs to get done. If this city's going to get back into tip-top shape, we got to take care of the things that are real important to us. And that boardwalk and the beach is our main asset. It's our main asset, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to do something to work together to take care of it. I don't get up there that often. I get tired of hearing squeaks in that boards as I walk. Now, I don't care what has to be done.
I can assure you, speaking for this board, we cooperate in every way in an effort to make the city better.
Well, I like to see somebody from CID representative to come to us Shade Tree Commission meeting. Now, you tell me we're not recognized as a Shade Tree Commission. But I like to see somebody come there, at least talk and hear some of our complaints that we have.
Listen, we're willing to listen to the complaints. We have to make sure, too, that there are things that we have the responsibility to do, or make some kind of an agreement with the city about who's going to do it and who's going to pay for it. I have no problem with any of that.
Okay, we can work that out, but if we don't talk to each other, we can't get nothing worked out.
Listen, we talk to the mayor all the time. He has the open road to call us or come. I'm sure it will continue, certainly on our part. I can't speak for the city other than the mayor can, and that's all I can say.
Mayor, what about our boardwalk and our beach?
So, Bill, you know that CRDA on a daily basis with the SID division trims the dunes that you're talking about. Every day that I bicycle by, I see them doing that in the warm weather. The boardwalk is a big boardwalk. It's almost 6 miles long, and you know that there are 4 people that are working all through the summer months repairing the boardwalk. It's always going to need to be repaired. If you're a carpenter in this city, you'll have a job until you die fixing that boardwalk. It's always going to need repairs. The CRDA provides the wood and the bolts, and the city works it. I don't know about any misunderstanding between the two. They provide the wood, Public Works does the installation of that. The map is very clear where SID cleans and where the city cleans. The tree commission
Well, I wish
is
that
another
Matt
issue.
would be cooperative. I really do, and I like to see somebody up there repairing the boardwalk when I go up there. I go up there quite a bit, and I don't see no repairing being done in the area I'm referring to.
But there's 6 miles of boardwalk and they're repairing it all the time. There's
I know
lots
they-
of
I
area
know they
repairs.
repaired in some way, but I want to see them repaired.
I know, you want
down
everything repaired.
In the
You
middle
want
of
it
the
today.
boardwalk
I
there.
got it.
Look, we've all been aware of the agreement, Bill, and that agreement is exactly as the mayor has stated. We have provided the wood and the materials that are needed, and the deal was the city would install it.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Hearing no further public comment, accept the motion
Motion.
to move by Mr. Gann. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Howard, that the SID budget be approved. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Approved. So ordered. Next one I think is pretty easy, janitorial supplies. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority extending contracts on an aggregate not to exceed amount of $75,000 for various janitorial supplies for the CRDA Special Improvement District through December 31st, 2018.
Any recusals? This is pretty straightforward. We released a solicitation for janitorial supplies for boardwalk restrooms, CRDA offices, and general maintenance. We've awarded one-year contracts to 6 of the vendors that responded to the solicitation, since each supplies different supplies needed with the option for an additional one-year term. So I request authorization for this. Board discussion. Public discussion. Seeing none, motion to accept. Moved. Have been moved and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. The next item is landscape materials, authorization to extend the existing contract with Warner's Construction Incorporated for landscape materials in an amount not to exceed $41,000 for an additional one-year period through December 31st. Lisa, you need to read that, right?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority extending contracts for an aggregate not to exceed amount of $41,000 for the purchase of landscaping materials for the CRDA Special Improvement District through December 31st, 2018.
Board discussion. Public discussion. Motion to adopt. Move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. The next item is the Tourism District Land Use Regulations, authorization to adopt new Tourism District land regulations. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority approving the adoption of new rules, NJAC 19:66, draft 1, et sec, pertaining to Atlantic City Tourism District land development regulations and submission thereof to the New Jersey Office of Administrative Law for publication in the New Jersey Register.
Thank you. Any recusals? By statute, the CRDA is tasked with creating zoning and land use regulations for the tourism district. It's something that we've been working on since the adoption of the master plan in 2011. In April of this year, the board adopted an amendment to the tourism district master plan to bring the document into better compliance with the municipal land use law. The 3 elements that were adopted were statement of goals and objectives, a land use element, mapping and documentation of existing uses for all the parcels within the tourism district, a housing element, statistical analysis of demographic and housing data within the tourism district. The legal staff and the land use staff, along with our planner consultant Christine Caffone, prepared the proposed tourism land use regulations. These proposed rules promote the goals and objectives of the master plan. They've gone through 2 public hearings. They have run the Office of Administrative Law public comment period from September 18th to November 17th, and we've received both written and verbal comments. So I would ask Lance Landgraf, our planner, to go through the outline of the regulations for us.
Will do, please. Gotta get the
correct document. Sorry about that. Been several revisions over the last few days. Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this has been a long process, starting back in March and April when we updated our master plan. So we're moving this forward. This is the summary of non-substantial changes and notice to the Office of Administrative Law that these are the rules that we intend to adopt, hopefully today. They would go into effect on December 18th. So public notice on the rules were published in the New Jersey Register on September 18th. That ran a 90-day, 60-day comment period. So this past Friday, November 17th. Copies of the proposed rules were distributed to interested parties, stakeholders, email, priority mail, to all individuals who signed up for such notice. We had that out on our website. You could sign up for the notice. To members of the news media, and we made available for review at the authority's offices. The authority published notice on November 15th and November 25th in the following
You mean
publications.
September?
September 9/15, sorry. September 15th and September 25th in the Atlantic City Press, the Courier Post, and the Star Ledger. The authority issued press releases announcing public hearings both on our website and again in our publications that we put out through our public relations office. We did hold two public hearings during that 60-day public comment period on October 4th at 10 a.m. in the morning and on October 10th at 6 p.m. at night to give the opportunity of people to talk both different times. Public comment period from September 18th, as I said, to November 17th, 2017, that ended this past Friday. This presentation today is in compliance, and the document is in compliance with NJAC 1:30-6.3. None of the changes to the rules made by the authority on adoption are substantial changes. No need to renotice the notice of proposal. And the changes are both agency initiated by us and in response to public comment made to achieve a better consistency and clarify with the Tourism Act and the District Master Plan. The areas of clarification or correction to the proposed rules. We address status of pre-existing redevelopment plans and redeveloper agreements. We harmonize the appeal process and penalties for violations of the rules with the Tourism District Act. Harmonize certain definitions and processes in the rules with the MLUL, Municipal Land Use Law, Hotel and Multiple Dwellings Law, NJDEP, FEMA, and FEMA standards. We corrected a district boundary line for the open space and Lighthouse 2 districts. We clarified the ambiguity pertaining to mixed uses on any one lot in certain zoning districts. We addressed uses on the piers, area and bulk requirements, and height requirements on the beach zone to accommodate historic practices. We revised permitted accessory uses to remove wireless telecommunication towers in the Gardens Basin District. We clarified the definition of temporary uses in all the zoning districts except the beach conservation and open space zone. Clarified sign requirements in certain zoning districts, including advertising and electronic signage. Corrected some typographical errors, some impervious coverage, spelling, grammar, syntax, and some transposed letters. With all that being said, the document was minimally changed to address those things that I just went through, those items I went through. This is the amended zoning map. The minor change that I talked about was literally a small parcel right here at the inlet side of the open space district. That will now be part of the Lighthouse 2 district. So with that is all I have in the presentation for Mr. Chairman.
Lance, I want to thank you and your staff. First of all, this has been a long project. It's one that's absolutely necessary so that we can do our business in a professional way. And I want to thank you and the staff for the work that they've done. Chris, I want to thank you for making sure that this got done. Board discussion.
Just to support that comment, Mr. Chairman, I know I was made and given every opportunity to be painfully aware of all the details that were involved in this, and I know Lance, both privately for the board and publicly for all the residents of Atlantic City, made himself completely available. I know I don't have any questions, and if you were paying attention, no one else should have any questions either. a very tedious and very good job.
Other comments from board members? Comments from members of the public? Seeing no comments from the public, I will accept a motion to authorize the adoption of the new tourism district land use regulations in accordance with the New Jersey law.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So this is really a significant action by this board. And it's something that probably should have been done before, but I thank Chris and Lance for taking it on and taking the time and the effort to get it done, because it's important for how we operate the tourism district and to bring things in up to date and in conformity with what we're trying to do here.
Mr. Chairman, I would be remiss if I didn't add Paul and his staff.
I'm sorry,
to
Paul,
that
I
as
didn't
well.
mean to
Paul,
overlook you here.
No offense taken, Mr.
We
Chairman.
take you for granted because you give us the advice.
The 2 a.m. emails were enough to warrant recognition.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, the Atlantic City Convention Center Exhibit Hall chairs and carts, authorization to purchase 2,400 chairs, 9 hand carts, and 18 storage carts for the exhibit hall in an amount not to exceed $291,614 from Michigan Tube Swaggers and Fabricator Incorporated. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority approving the procurement of chairs and carts from Michigan Tube Swaggers and Fabricator Incorporated, doing business as MTS Seating for use in the Atlantic City Convention Center, with a spending authorization not to exceed $291,614.
Any recusals? Seeing none. This is simply the purchase for replacement of chairs that have become damaged over the last 20 years. The damaged chairs will be replaced with the same color and style of chair that's currently in place, and it'll be funded through the luxury tax bond proceeds. Board discussion. Hearing none, public discussion. Seeing none, motion to approve.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Gantz, or second?
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Next is another major accomplishment, the Historic Boardwalk Hall lobby renovation project. Authorization for Spectra Venue Management to award a contract to Network Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $10,560,447 for general construction services. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority approving a construction services contract for lobby renovations and escalator replacement for the East Hall of Boardwalk Hall.
Any recusals? Before I ask Chris to describe the project, I want to make sure everybody understands that the funds for these improvements to Boardwalk Hall and the Convention Center come from a bond issue that goes back to the Sports Authority, and as part of the takeover came to us. These monies can only be spent to improve either of those facilities. It's not something that's a fund that we can use for other things. So with that, Chris, would you take us through?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I tee it up, Sasha's here. I'll just kind of tee up the action, and we'll have a quick overview of the renovations plans. But this contract for the renovations to the garage level lobby, the boardwalk level lobby, and the pre-function space in the lobby at Boardwalk Hall. Renovations will include the removal and replacement of 4 escalators, one of which has been out of service for a while now. Installation of stairs, construction of some new walls, floors, and doors, new wall and ceiling finishes, installation of museum quality display cases and lighting, and some audiovisual and mechanical updates. I believe this is the first major renovation at the lobby since 1984. It's 33 years old. If you ask me, it looks every bit of it. We did do some work on the ticket office in 2004, but this is, it was not nearly this extensive. And again, Chairman, I would just echo your remarks that these are funded through luxury tax bond proceeds that have to be used on Boardwalk Hall and the Convention Center. So with that, if Tom, if is it you that's going to walk through, or Chris, if you don't mind, just a quick overview of the design here.
Sure. One, we're grateful for the opportunity to have a chance to work with the authority and with the most important building and sort of the foundation of Atlantic City, this Boardwalk Hall. I'm here with Chris Mensch, our project architect and lead, and Arlie Shahaki, who is our project designer. And it's really a mix of aesthetic improvements, functional enhancements, and replacement, as you said, Chris, of the escalators that were greatly in need. But the authority added a component to the project that we're all very grateful to see, and that was the inclusion of a historic museum to celebrate the history of Atlantic City, of which this is the foundation of. There is new wall, floor, ceiling finishes, new lighting, audiovisual, a museum adapted literally to celebrate the history of Atlantic City and the major components of it, and that will draw from the Historic Museum. It will draw from the library, has been a great partner in this with the authority and our project team. And just a real chance to celebrate the most important building in our city. And we're very glad the bid went well, and a very good contractor's been identified through that public bid. And we're looking forward to seeing the project move forward.
Tom, thank you. I will add, as a footnote to what Tom just said about the bids, we had 5 bidders. 4 of them were within 300,000. I mean, which goes to show you that the bid price was close. We had estimated a little more, so that that's always good news when you get something a little less. Board discussion.
Chairman, has there been an ROI analysis on this project? I mean, it's a significant capital request.
So we did the ROI analysis for that. It does create some new opportunities for us in terms of the ability to host events, pre and post function events, gatherings or parties, that type of thing, receptions. To be honest, it's not necessarily driven just by ROI. Some of the work just needed to be done. The escalator component of this is, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but $2.5 million or so by itself. So some of it is really just functional improvements and aesthetic improvements, but there's an ROI component as well through events into that space.
So that ROI component is based on your response, that can I assume that's a negative ROI? It will not be sufficient enough incremental revenue to justify.
To completely offset the cost, right? We don't anticipate that the additional revenue driven by the events would completely offset the cost.
Is the facility self-sufficient, meaning generates enough revenue to cover its expenses, or is it subsidized?
No, it's still subsidized under the.
So this would create further subsidy.
No, it will create, it may help the bottom line on the facilities, Kevin. So the subsidies there should be reduced. The money for this comes out of the bond issue that was set aside for this use.
And you were clear that there is, it has to be used at one of 2 facilities. So
Yes.
I guess I would ask, is there a better use of those dollars to those facilities that will actually generate incremental revenue to help either pay for that or increase visitation to Atlantic City, such as infrastructure for perhaps more shows, as some of the entertainment initiatives we have in the forthcoming months? Or
I think we tried to address that initially with things like the new grid, and the new bathrooms, and the things that were really functionally required for the use of patrons. Now it becomes an aesthetic issue in terms of making the facility that much warmer for people to come into. So it was sort of a priority process where we dealt with the roof, bathrooms, the grid, the things that are gonna make it more functional from an operating standpoint, and then try to address the issues that will make the building better.
So we don't believe that there are other uses of those funds that could help drive incremental revenue to where we are today, that would help drive visitation?
We have, those are part of our capital budget as well. This has been in the capital budget, I believe, and the inspector guys can correct me if I'm wrong, at least for the past 2 years. It's been part of our capital budget or proposed capital budget. And I would add to, in terms of ROI, it's not direct, but enhancing the attractiveness of the building will help us bring in more people. They're more interested in coming to a more attractive facility. Boardwalk Hall is a world-class facility with far below a world-class lobby area right now, and this is the main entryway to the building. It's the first thing people see. It's what you see off of the boardwalk. So there's some things, I mean, we can quantify it in terms of what events we're able to bring in specifically for the lobby, but what is more difficult to quantify, more people coming to the building because it looks like a nice place instead of, a little bit outdated. Or artists being more likely to come in potentially because it looks like a nicer building and, there's,
This building is on the historic register,
Yes.
Yes.
national too.
Yes.
yes, sir.
Does that impose any additional requirements to maintain it?
There's a long list of extra requirements for us. I wouldn't go as far as to say this would be required necessarily, but if that was the question. But certainly, the historic status of the building comes with numerous requirements.
Do any of those requirements add to the cost of this project?
So, yeah, I would say so. I don't want to speak out of turn if I'm incorrect.
No, not completely, but they actually have to approve the project,
So,
and
yeah.
and Sasha had to submit on behalf of the building through Historic Architect to get this approved by them.
Is there a marketing awareness campaign to inform the public to help drive visitation?
Well, that's an issue that we discuss and debate ever since ACA was abolished. And unfortunately, at this time, the only organization that really spends much marketing this is Meet AC in an effort to get hotel rooms. It's an issue that we've talked about a lot. It's one that I'd love to have the casinos partner with. But I think, having been in the business for a long time, and my excellent leader in the back there, Mike Rowe, has been in it even more than I. We know what the limitations of the facility are. We know how difficult it is to get access to come to Atlantic City. So it behooves us to make the facility as fan or patron friendly as you can. Michael, would you want to comment on this a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Mr. Ortzman's point, two things. One on the renovation to the lobby themselves. This build-out in this shell space is potentially viewed as something that could be enhanced even more going forward and be a tourist attraction, whether it's a per fee tour or other things. The displays and the cinema potential are ones essentially to get more people to come down and do more commerce at this end of certainly the boardwalk. Just Friday, Mr. Chairman, Jim Wincoop and I toured the building to look at revenue generating opportunities, and there's a couple of dollars that are put in for some architectural work to look at things like changing the seating, upgrades for premium seats. As you know, there's one suite in the building that's really not a suite. Looking at enhancing some food options, some star rooms. In the budget, there's also, since we'll be doing next year, a few different sporting events, an upgraded scoreboard which has advertising capability. So the capital budget is based on life safety, maintenance, and revenue enhancement opportunities. As the life safety and maintenance and capital that Jim McDonald has under control seem to be pretty well underway. We're now concentrating on those things that will generate more revenue and make the building more attractive. We hear from event promoters all the time that the building, with its limited number of seats, limited number of premium spaces, isn't competitive with some of the other buildings that artists can tour. So we're trying to find some new levels of cream in the building that can be enhancements, including improving the star dressing rooms and making artists want to come back here a little bit more and making it a little more convenient. So I hope that answers your question.
Other questions from members of the board?
President, one brief question. Approximately how much additional funding did the museum portion add?
There's about $300,000 in there for the presentation of cases, but we're not going ahead with that until the library, or who's ever going to come back with what they want to put in there, comes before the board and makes a case for what ought to be there, and we agree. There's a whole series of things. I think the chairperson, Deborah DiLorenzo, has brought this subject up. There are more than enough things to go in there. The question is how we use it and what's the best use. And I think even though we've allocated some money in this for that, it's not going to be spent until we have a plan that this board has approved.
Just not a question, but I mean, I think it's a great plan to renovate an area which is somewhat dated, and certainly the life safety issues are definitely needed to ensure the safety of the individuals who enter and exit the building. On the museum end, I concur completely. I mean, most of us who've gone to museums recognize that the museums change. A room like this, and over time, what may be exhibited this year could change next year. But I think the board should, through the executive director, maintain control over those decorative arts and what would be shown on a temporary or limited time basis. And we open it up to interested parties who feel that they have museum quality products of interest that would attract visitors to the building. So I concur, and it's not a question, but I think we've made the right steps, and certainly the idea of getting the construction started and then filling out the museum areas or rooms later goes in very nicely.
Other comments from board members?
So just one last question. What is, to the architect, what is the biggest driver of cost in this project?
Escalators.
Architectural fees.
Any other questions for board members? I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
if I can make one more comment. 75% of the project is mechanical. It's lighting, it's escalators. There's going to be a new stair put in from the lower lobbies. It's doors. So they may not necessarily be this museum portion that, you were looking for ROI on that. It's mechanical. It's the flooring that's really driving the cost of this project.
Public comments. Mr. Cheatham.
Well, looking around, I don't see no representatives from our public library. So that means I'm gonna have to have a dual position here. As president of the board, trustees of the library. Now, I want to commend all you ladies and gentlemen of the board. Some of you agree, some of you don't. But this Boardwalk Hall has been neglected for a long time. And to see you put this much money trying to revitalize it means a whole lot to the city. Whether the people in the city realize it or not, I don't know. I just know I realize it. As one citizen that's been involved with that convention hall for a long time. I worked there. I visited many times when I was growing up there. The hockey and everything else that went on there. I remember a whole lot in that Boardwalk Hall. And I also remember that our leaders at that time, when this building was built, had more vision than all the leaders that we've had in the past. That's all I can say. This building is still standing and still being useful to our city, and it's still a star on that boardwalk. Now, you're making it a star if you put these historical ideas in there on display. And I would mention this, that we need to include this entire county because this whole county has benefited from Atlantic City over the years. And we need to include all of them as well. Sometime maybe have a county exhibit with all the different municipalities within our county. So it can be used very wisely if our leadership permits. Now, whether you say yes or no, I don't know. I'm hoping and praying you say yes to get this building back to its glory. Because we gotta take care of what's good to our city and what brings the people here. And that's gonna draw more people to our town if we put the right exhibits in it. And I appreciate you taking the time to work on this project, because it's been in my heart for a long time, ladies and gentlemen, for a long time. And I'm glad to see it materialize while I'm still here.
That we want done. Thank you, Bill. Other public comments? Yes, sir.
I'd like to springboard some on what he said. Boardwalk Hall, Convention Hall was conceived by Nucky Johnson, built under Mayor Ruffew, and it was designed and built in less time than it takes us to renovate bathrooms today. It is what it is.
Wow.
We currently have $10 million that the state legislature can't figure out how to get, because if they could, they would, because they do it in general fund. So it has to be spent somewhere. Later on today, I'm going to talk about the architectural marvels that were Atlantic City and when they first started getting knocked down and what we can do about that. But I think it's important that this can take place as a reprideful station in Atlantic City, something that everyone owns, that the community owns, even though it's owned by Trenton. It's something that was the lifeblood. I graduated high school. I watched high school footballs there. I saw the Ice Capades. I saw Pavarotti. I saw Madonna. I saw Streisand as recently as Miss America. I saw ice skating, basketball games. We are underutilizing the facility with what we're trying to attract and who we're trying to attract. It was always full in my youth. And it was probably full when we still had an ACVA, or an ACA. Now, one of the things we're talking about doing is recreating a history museum. There was talk at one time about making the entire East Hall a history museum. Is there any talk on that?
No, there has not been.
Because the history of Atlantic City is far more fascinating than what we save and what they create for TV. We have black history, we have entertainment history, we have all sorts of cultural history in this town, and I think that's one of the places we can capitalize on it in the future. That's my say.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the projects? Been moved by Mr. Gann. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded, Kevin? Dave? Any further discussion from any board member? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. That's another big issue that we accomplished tonight. Next item, as you know, we have been working hard to make sure that unspent project fund reservations in the past that are no longer being used, we want to take them out of the reservation phase and put them into the unspent project funds. So this is, Lisa, would you please read this resolution? This is a resolution to approve the release and reallocate unspent project funds.
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority releasing and reallocating unspent project funds to the Atlantic City Housing Fund and the Atlantic City Tourism District and Community Development Fund as applicable.
Any recusals? I think I gave a pretty quick, there's about $4 million that we've identified in balances within the Tourism District and Community Development Fund for the consideration of the board. We've done this in the past as we've gone through the funds that have been on reservation sometimes for several years. And when the projects are done and there's money left there, we should have it put in the general fund, and then that is what we're doing here. Board discussion. Public comment. Motion to approve the release and reallocation.
Motion, Mr. Chair.
Moved by the treasurer, second. Mr. Spencer. Any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Next item on the agenda is another significant project here. It's the Trump Plaza demolition project. We need the board to make a preliminary determination of project eligibility. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority granting nation of project eligibility for the Trump Plaza demolition project.
Anybody need to be recused on this? Chris, do you want to go through the description of the action?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, as was read, this is a request for a preliminary determination of project eligibility. Nick Teldocchia, who is counsel for the applicant, is, I believe, here.
He's here.
He's hiding. Nick, if you,
Yeah, sure.
Nick will present the request.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nick Talbaki, from Levinson, on behalf of the applicant. This is an application requesting a direct investment of approximately $5.6 million of existing investment alternative tax funds that are on deposit with the authority. The project's a $13.2 million project, which involves the demolition of what's known as the West Tower and the associated bridges. Does not include the demolition of the East Tower or the garage or the two small surface parking lots that are currently there. It also includes the addition of a new 160 space parking lot. So when it's all said and done, the garage has 22,081 spaces. The two existing parking lots comprise a total of 170 spaces, and we're going to add another 160. So when it's all said and done, it'll be about 2,400 spaces. The garage is targeted to be open for maybe 160 days a year on an as-needed basis. The lots will be open every day of the year. So the lots are about 330 spaces, the surface lots, when including the new 160 space lot. We submitted and just in terms of schedule, we would anticipate, if all goes as we predict, with asbestos removal, liquidation, and whatnot, that the project could be complete in about 15 months from today, assuming this board approves the allocation of funds. So that's it. I think the project squarely falls within the purposes of the authority in terms of what it can and can't do. And have any questions, I'll address.
Nick, thank you. I want to reiterate so that everybody understands. The $5.582 million is money that is on deposit from investment tax credits from the casino in our bank. As you know, in the past, we have seen fit to use the money with casinos for projects that will enhance their use. In some cases, we've split the money. In other cases, we've decided what's the best use. Frankly, I think we all feel that the demolition of this tower is in the best interest of Atlantic City, and it's been the recommendation of the committee that the investment tax credits on deposit be used in this demolition. Board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a minute and apologize to Mr. Morowitz for a report that he gave at the last meeting. I mistakenly thought that you had given a previous report, and I do take time to say I'm sorry.
Apology accepted.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to go on record also with your professional, Mr. Morowitz presented professional testimony indicating that it was his expert opinion that after the demolition of the property that such demolition would have no impact on the appraised value of the land or the property, and that what is currently paid in real estate taxes now to the city and the county would remain essentially the same. Is that correct?
That is what the report says based upon information. Well, that's what it says.
That's what your expert's report says, yes.
Now, there was a tax settlement, as you may know, which is in effect for several years. At some point, the city's tax assessor will make the determination this project's not in the pilot. That's a state officer.
Correct.
We have no control over what that determination is going forward.
No, I understand that if the city tax assessors chooses to reevaluate the value of the property and under following their guidelines, they may do so. But it's your expert opinion stating that they do not believe it would have an impact on the appraised value today.
Should be, the feeling is it'll be somewhat neutral because you're adding an economic value with the parking lot. You're taking down a building that is seen as a potential impediment to future development, in which impedes a purchaser's intent to purchase and develop, so.
I think ultimately it will increase its value and the tax just because we've opened up land there. Mayor?
Is the $5.6 million in the IATs, did it all come from the Taj and the Plaza?
Yes.
Three
And
properties.
if the $5.6 million is not used for this project, what could it be used for?
It would have to be used for a project that it came in with. Can't be used by other casinos.
That the three former Trump properties could be used for? So that, and what could that be?
Who knows?
So I agree that the project needs to come down. The question is, since you've already gotten your tax reduction several times, tax appeals one, why are they asking us for the $5.5 million since you're taking this building down to save future tax appeals? You're already responsible for the properties closing and the loss of the jobs and the suffering that Atlantic City went through. I have trouble trying to see how we should pay $5.5 million to create a 165 space parking lot.
Well, it's more than a parking lot, that's an interim use. The idea is to create vacant land that is amenable to new development.
Understood.
Remove impediment. I think long-term, it's a benefit to the city, to the state, and, just to clarify, $5.6 million is really the money of the licensee. CRDA determines how it's used. It's used in a lot of ways. CRDA money has been used for road improvements, for demolition back in '95 of buildings, of vacant buildings, so a whole range of uses, but the licensee has a say in how that's used.
So I just want to clarify that this can really only be used for the benefit of the owners of
That's correct.
Trump property. That's correct. Is that correct, statement?
Howard?
We've used it multiple, well, it requires the consent of the licensee unless the CRDA issues bonds, which it hasn't done in, I don't know how many years.
Just a question or comment. I was unable to make it to the committee that particular day, but just clarify me, the standalone East Tower, is that the old Holiday Inn building?
Yes.
That's going to stay?
Yes.
Yes. And the reason why that's not included?
There's a tenant in it, it's active. I guess the determination was made that that has some economic value going forward.
Chairman, as you noted, there have been previous uses of IATs to benefit the city and the properties themselves, where CRDA has kept a portion, of those funds that could be used at the discretion of CRDA for various initiatives to help continue to drive tourism. Why wouldn't we do that here?
I think it was a determination that the demolition of that Plaza tower was important, but it's almost part of the gateway into the city, and that land could be very valuable. And it was a determination of the committee that, as we have in other cases, made a determination to try and help get this done.
So I agree.
It's a business decision.
It's certainly going to be beneficial to the city for that tower to go down. I don't know if I agree it's the gateway. You have a big garage that's blocking that.
But
So somebody's going to get some value out of that. So perhaps if there wasn't a desire to have some kind of share of those funds, that CRDA could use at the discretion, perhaps to increase meet AC, that everybody would be a beneficiary. There are lots of uses for that. That if there is a future sale of some sort, that CRDA is able to recoup some percentage of that to be able to use for initiatives to drive tourism around the city.
You can argue, Kevin, a lot of things for what we might do. This is here and now in front of us.
Yeah, I wasn't part of the committee to
Yeah.
see any of that either.
I mean, look,
Questions.
there's a lot of things we'd like to do. As I said before, I'd like to see some participation for the marketing of the city from the casinos, in addition to meet AC, but that's a separate argument. And if we felt that in our own we wanted to do additional marketing, I think we'd do it. I don't think it depends on this at all.
The other thing I would add, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, is part of the process for this is to have a presentation. This will be done. This is a preliminary determination of project eligibility. The next step is the actual project approval, but in order to get to that point, there has to be a hearing where an analysis that was done at the committee level and will be done at the project approval level that explains why this is a benefit and what the benefit is for the city and why it's an appropriate use of funds. this is a preliminary step, but before we get to that final approval, you'll see.
I don't think anyone's arguing that there's value. Sure.
I understand. I'm
There's
just
certainly an argument
clarifying.
that it's not consistent with previous
Hey, look, you can take
beneficial
almost,
projects.
you can take almost anything we did today and say you could spend the money for something. The question is, it's here and now before us. We think that it's, given the time that we're in and where we are, and the fact that, in our opinion, Atlantic City is on the upswing, this will help, and that was the determination in this case. Other
You
comments?
certainly could, Chairman, but I would argue we have a fiduciary responsibility to take action today that's going to make Atlantic City better in the longer run, and consideration of best use is probably prudent by all of us.
Well, I can make the case the action today isn't the best use for the future of Atlantic City. If we create the land area there and have future development, they're gonna bring tax revenues to the city.
160 parking spots.
Pardon?
With 160 parking spots.
And, Mr. Chairman, they're still claiming the right underground, so it's gonna cost this board several $1 million to rebuild the heating and cooling that we need for the Boardwalk Hall, because we're not permitted to go underneath the building that we're gonna pay to demolish. Just wanna make sure I understand.
Well, we've already signed that contract.
Okay.
Other comment from the board? Richard?
Just a couple, just for clarification, so reporting is accurate. This resolution today does make it clear that this does not constitute approval or a reservation of money.
That's correct.
I just want to clarify that. The second thing, Nick, you mentioned the garage is going to be open 160 days.
That's a prediction in the report. Yeah.
And what determines which 160 days?
Events, first of all summer, summer season, however you're going to define that. So maybe that's 120 days. And then different events, if Boardwalk Hall is booked for a concert, for example, that's the thinking. So it comes out to 160, and again, it's a guess.
Nick, if I could, I assume that this depletes your account.
Yes.
Yes. Other comments from board
I
members?
just wanted to follow up, you touched on the point I was going to make about this just being preliminary determination of eligibility is coming back before the board. And as I mentioned, I would feel much better if this were part of a overall redevelopment plan, but we'll proceed with it.
Other comments from board members? Comments from the public? Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the question.
I recognize this gentleman back here. Would you state your name?
Chairman, members of the board, my name is Maharsh Patel. I'm a resident of Atlantic City. I came here to urge you to oppose this, simply because, if they own the property, they should pay for the expenses, not the taxpayers.
The taxpayers aren't paying for it.
No, but it's IAT taxes.
No.
That
That
came
everybody
from the
pays.
casinos.
No.
That came originally from the casinos.
That's not accurate. The statute says that IAT are not taxes of the state or grants to the state. They are not. They belong to the licensee. The licensee is entitled to a return on investment, subject to this authority approving how those monies are used, but they are not considered taxes. The New Jersey Supreme Court has said that, and the statute says it.
But then the fund is actually currently being used to cover the Atlantic City debt. So why are we, why are we using the funds to give it to a car icon?
Those monies that we're talking about today are pre-statute funds. In other words, the new IATs are being used at the city. The old IATs before the statute remain the property of the casino licensee. And we're not talking about the new IATs, we're talking about older IATs.
So what's the period?
It's whenever the statute was adopted, reallocating.
Can I get a clarification on statute?
May 26th of 2016 was the date of adoption of the amendment to the act that diverted and repurposed future IATs from licensees to the city for support of city debt service.
We are spending.
From and after that point.
We are spending about $22 million. Diverting $22 million that would have come to us as a result of the pilot agreement, so that to help the city erase its debt. I think you got to understand that as part of this equation.
But then what about the tax evaluation when the building is demolished? Will they be paying more taxes or less?
Depends what they put on it. I can't tell you. So far, we
Can
don't
a board
know.
request that, the projection for public to see it?
Well, you can't, I don't think you can go to a property owner and say, what are you gonna do with the property? They may not know yet, I don't know.
But that impacts your decision today.
Pardon?
That impacts your decision today.
No, it doesn't. This is a preliminary approval so that they can come in with a project that we can make a determination on. See, I think the fact that it has confused you is, these are not tax dollars that are taken away from the city. In fact, the investment tax credits, as I just said, are going to help the city pay its debt, like $22 million a year that's coming from this agency, not from the taxpayers.
So by giving 5 million, what return the city actually gonna get?
Well, the return will be whatever the taxes on the property yield eventually.
No, but how does it benefit the city?
Look, I think every board member has an obligation to see clearly as best that the board member can. I think we all look to the future that this city's gonna have some sunny days ahead of us. And I can tell you from my perspective, looking at what they were asking us to do, the licensee's in the driver's seat, right? They can keep that building up forever, and it's a very big detriment to the city. That building comes down with these funds. There might be future investment. You know, you have to see beyond the last 3 to 5 years here and the negativity. We're in a renaissance period, and to me, this effectuates the change that's needed. Now, we've all made exceptions, and it's been the difficult task to be on this board, but we're trying to make decisions which will move the city forward. So if I were you as a resident, I would look to the future. And I think that this is a positive.
So that's the thing, right? If CRDA was, the things that you guys were supposed to do in terms of reinvestment, it's a mess.
Whoa,
But now
whoa,
we are.
Whoa. You're taking on a subject here that really has no basis in fact with this agency. That's not been our role. Our role has been, and we've done a lot of things in the city. Some of them haven't worked out. But we took risks and we took chances. If you look at the Sheraton Hotel, that's up because we took a big risk on it. Are we getting paid back?
Look at the licensees of these casinos. Resorts Casino invested well over $100 million of free capital. Tropicana, Caesars, Bally's, Harrah's. You can argue that the city has been mismanaged for years.
So what can explain the physical problem that the city has?
I would go ask the city.
Mayor's right over here.
He's tried to do it, and with all due respect to the mayor, he's made an effort to do it. All you have to do is look at the problems that existed with the getting out of the tax appeals, with the cost of running the city. You see, a little history lesson here. When everything was booming in this city, before the collapse of '08, you had 3 entities involved. You had the casinos, you had the state, you had the city. Everybody had additional money. More people were put on. The 3 entities did not work together at that particular time for the benefit of the future. That's my view. So you have to go back and look at that. What we're trying to do as an agency is to change that. And if you look at the actions we've taken here in the last 2 years, I think we've made a major impact. You can start right down in Chelsea and start with Stockton and all the things that have come up to the South Inlet and the things that we're doing. That's our role. And we've paid a big price for that, to the tune of $22 million a year to help pay the debt so the city can survive.
Thank you, but I would still like more clarification on the statute and all that, so maybe.
I'd be happy to give it to you. We're very transparent. There's nothing being hidden here. Other comments from the public? Mr. Cheatham.
Now, all this parking fees that is generated in that area, flat surface parking, the garage, does any of that go to the CRDA? Or does any of it go to the city?
They're not casino fees. They're not casino, because it's not a casino parking lot. Those fees.
Well, it's not a casino parking lot, that's great. But I'm saying, why is it that we can't share some of that revenue from those parking lots?
Bill, you asked the right question. It's something we're looking at.
Well, somebody need to look at it, because I mean, that's
Believe
money,
me, we are.
that's money that we could use in this city to do better. I mean, you know, guys get a parking lot and park cars and getting revenues and we don't even share that money? Come on. To me, this whole picture is wrong for me as a citizen. When I hear about things like that, man, you know, I don't like you guys at all.
I'm just a lawyer.
We're a friendly.
That might have something to do with it.
Other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk a little. Social media, it's clear. Billionaire welfare, let them eat cake. Now, that being said, I'm fully aware of how the casinos contribute the money so that they can take it back. I'm fully aware that in 1984 the CRDA was created out of nothing to be able to tax the citizens of Atlantic City. So every time you say something, or what year was it then? I'm sorry. What year was the CRDA?
It's not the year. The year is correct.
Oh.
But you said that's incorrect.
Well, when Mr. Mulcahy sits there and says, we just gave 22 million, it came from the city of Atlantic City and the buildings in Atlantic City. So many of the, we understand that, inside the city of Atlantic City. So many of our residents feel as though that we're getting double taxed. I want you to be aware of that, okay? So you often are the point the finger of blame. I'm not putting any blame, I'm telling you what's going on out there. So the theory is well supported by him, let him eat cake. The next thing is the luxury tax. One of the things that happens in the city of Atlantic City, the luxury tax was created for the city of Atlantic City to pay for the extra tourism. What happens now is it goes off to the state. So many of the vehicles that were in place to support our tourism industry and worked for years, like Convention Hall, have been taken out of the city and funneled back in at less than the 100% that was taken out. So there is a historical perspective to everything, but that's what goes on in the city, okay? Be aware of that. Mark, thank you for investing. Thank you for investing. We're thrilled to have you all here. But we have to figure out, in our renaissance, where we are heading.
Other comments from the public? Hearing none. Any further comments from the board? I'll accept a motion to approve preliminary determination of project eligibility. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr.
Moved by Mr. Tolson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Hearing no further comment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Two opposition? Mr. Horstman and the mayor. So noted. Now we come to that portion of the meeting where we have public comment on any issue that any member of the public wishes to bring to our attention. Any public? Yes, sir.
Am I up?
Yes, you are.
One of the things I decided last year when I came here, or came back here, was to make a difference and to recreate some of the history in Atlantic City. We had to get through an election. Who knows what that's going to do to the makeup of the board? Who knows what it's going to do to the direction of Atlantic City? We know Sheila Oliver will be in charge. I've already made outreaches to that office. And one of the things I'd like to see is some of the land that exists in Atlantic City go back to Atlantic City. We have approximately 2 blocks broken down. It covers 3 blocks, but a couple other big landholders in the inlet. And I'm going to hand out maps so that you see where you are. But they're bordered by metropolitan Rhode Island. There's a lot of stuff going on up there. And I would like to see a real estate investment trust created where the small guys can get involved on many different levels, including investing and including coming in. You have some of the greatest architecture that was ever put on exhibit in America was created for the city of Atlantic City. If you ever read Boardwalk Jungle, not Empire, but Jungle by Ovid Damaris, you'll see that the first guy to put his imprint on Atlantic City out of Trenton was Brendan Byrne. He wanted all the old stuff down. Resorts was already going through renovation. We had a real estate convention going on then. I know exactly what happened. We had to get in there at the time and everything else because we had a contract. But in these two blocks, we have the ability to recreate the facades of Atlantic City, the old facades that everyone longs for, everyone yearns for. You now have a walking destination from the Showboat, from the Revel, from, what's next door? I'm going to say it wrong, not Hard Rock, and really anywhere else in the city. But one of the things that used to exist in the city of Atlantic City, we were a town of neighborhoods. It didn't matter where you went. We were known as the town of 500 bars. It didn't matter where you went. There was a corner that would have your flavor and take your style. So part of our roots are in our very roots, but we keep ignoring them. And I think one of the most important things we can do is make something different happen and make it happen for the small guy. There's no reason we as the CRDA can't team with the city, donate the land to the city to have a forever leasehold on it, require some of the people, you have some HUD property in there too, but require some residency things, and require new businesses behind the old facades, just like DC. DC is nothing but old facades, and create our own universal studios of sorts. So that's where I am. I'm going to hand these out so that you know. In 2010, Tom Carver asked me to sit on this board, and I said, no, it's too political. I don't believe that has changed. I don't blame it on you, but I don't believe that has changed.
When you say it's too political, what do you mean?
Controlled outside of the area. Who lives in Atlantic City? Not many of us.
Who works in Atlantic City every day?
Who was born
But
in
who's- Who works in Atlantic City every day?
Who was born in Atlantic City, who lives in Atlantic?
I recognize the county residents. We are, so far as I'm concerned, the city and the county can be one and the same because we are in a depression out there. That's what we're
Make
facing.
it a different answer if you ask county.
Huh?
different
I know
answer.
that, but that's a different fight. I'm not here to be political. I'm not here to be political. I'm here to try and create, or recreate the initial intent. When Mike Cohan was the original director of the CRDA, there was 3 guys in an office spending money and making things happen. And unfortunately, through no fault of your own, the nature of the board changed. What it was directed to do changed. And how it has to recreate itself now, I think, is the most important thing. I had $30 million of funding for a hotel in this town shot down, made fun of by those in the CRDA at that time. It was for the nation's first gay and boutique hotel. Honeymoons, before they were legal in the state of New Jersey. 2 years later, they come to me, they'll give me $10 million. Well, where am I going to get 20? Atlantic City's in the toilet. So, I can give you story after story, even when you talk about land use earlier. Once a week I get a call about land use. It's not my thing, but they know I have a mouth. I choose not to use it all the time. One of the hardest things for me to do. So let's keep on target. I'm going to ask that you just pass those around. It'll give you a very brief, intellectually it's been thought through to the end. Give you a very brief idea of what I'm doing, review it, talk to yourselves, and let's make something positive happen, please, for the little guy.
Kevin, do you want to just address the properties that the CRDA is going to be auctioning off?
Yeah.
I don't think.
Right, it's different ones than what was just raised, but we are, we're working on, and we actually have.
Where's the copy of that thing?
So Jeff, we're working on an auction now for the properties that we own outside the district. I know those are different than the ones you just mentioned.
Yeah.
We do have a plan in place.
I am aware of that too. I've heard that through the grapevine. Mr. Cheatham would like a copy if there's an extra. I'm not sure how many I brought.
No, you can have it.
I'll get it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I have a moment?
Richard, you can have whatever your heart desires.
I appreciate the gentleman's comments. One of the things I've often felt a need to say at this board is
my sincere belief that the decisions made here need to be made and influenced in large part by people that actually walk the streets, similar to what you said. Born and raised in Ocean City, there's a lot of people that make up this board that either live, work, or play. Play is all encompassing. In Atlantic City, and have done it, in my case, my entire life. My father worked for Abbott's Dairies.
Oh my God.
South Carolina Avenue, and I used to go there to get ice cream. I played in the Spencer Bennett basketball tournament in Boardwalk Hall. I'm sure Mr. Cheatham remembers that. Shopped in High Malins with my older brothers, and some other things along the way. But this board, I think, represents people who put the soles of their shoes and have their heart in doing what's right for Atlantic City. And I think this was the opportunity that I wanted to express that. The second comment that I wanted to make, I recently, I hope this isn't premature, but I wanted to say, I wrote a letter to the press, but it did not get published. And he is not here today. One of the people that I just referenced is Matt Levinson, whose heart and soul and integrity was in his job and his commitment to this board, to our industry, and to the region at large. And I think it is a tremendous loss that he won't be here anymore. And I would also like to salute all the public designees that have served on this board and have served with the same amount of integrity and will continue to serve. I'm not suggesting anything different, for I have no crystal ball, but the people that I have had the honor of the last 4 to 5 years of serving with here, and specifically in the public sector appointees, are committed to this community, to this region, and certainly to this industry. And that's similar to the comments I put into a letter to the Atlantic City Press, specifically in regards to Mr. Levinson. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to express that today. Thank you.
Richard, I thank you for that, and I certainly feel that. I think that if you look at every person on this board, they have some relationship to what's going on in Atlantic City or has gone on in Atlantic City. And there is a feeling about the city that is almost nostalgic with everybody on this board. Yeah, we want to make sure that it gets better, and we're trying to do the best we can to make those decisions.
Can I add that publicly, and you can, because I'm of record everywhere, I have stated that I believe the board is doing what it can under the current guidelines to make things advance. And right now what I'm proposing is that we think outside a little of the box that we've been placed in to move forward. I think the intentions here are good.
Look, I think we're always ready to think outside the box, but
Build the box, don't let them build it for you.
well, but there's a reality to the statute. Our minutes have to be approved, whatever actions we take. So that involves a process in itself. So I just think it's important that whoever the administration is does have some say over the fact that they have the right to sign the minutes. And our actions do not become doable until those minutes are signed.
I'm aware.
Other comments from board members? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment portion of the meeting. We will have an executive session. I don't know that there will be no action that comes out of it. There's some litigation and contract negotiation matters that the board has to discuss. If I thought anything was going to come out of it, I would tell you. So at this point, I will accept a motion from this board to close the public meeting and go into executive session.
Motion.
Move, second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.